Hey everybody, my name's Christopher from Element Winery. I wanted to first of all welcome you to my house. Thank you so much for coming and joining me. And also wanted to thank you for all your support. It's something that I can't say over and often enough, but the support both sort of spiritually and mentally in what we're doing, as well as a customer, is really what keeps us going. Both knowing that you appreciate the work that we're doing and also literally helps keep us running day to day. So thank you so much for that. Kind of wanted to introduce you to a new idea, and that is we've started to rethink the way that we want to connect. And while in the past I've tried my very best to stay connected as much as possible, maybe I always haven't been as good as I could have at it. So we've decided that we'd go down a new path. We wanted to start kind of working with these videos with our releases to try and bring you a little bit more kind of a direct voice, maybe a little bit more direct information, and hopefully a little bit more direct insight into what we're doing, what we're thinking, and why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. So first of all, welcome to the first video. We thought we would start out by telling you a little bit about this upcoming wine release that we've got coming your way. Hopefully we will get it out soon. Never quite been our strong point in life, but hopefully we'll have this out so that it gets to you in time for Thanksgiving. And otherwise, it'll definitely be there by Christmas. I promise you that. So, I wanted to start telling you a little bit more about what we do. We finally finished, rather, our 10th vintage. It's kind of nice to have everything in the winery, relaxed, settled in, especially since it's already snowed here. Man, the weather has dropped off cold. So we are really excited to have another vintage in the bag. And actually, this would be our 10th vintage overall. So really excited to have kind of learned from and experienced sort of 10 very unique vintages here in the Finger Lakes at this point. So this one was pretty exciting. We're really, really excited about what we got in. I think the quality is really beautiful, but also unlike maybe some past years, the stress level was way down during this harvest, which was really, really nice. It was just a nice, beautiful, consistent year, or rather, consistent fall, I should say. So it was, it's really nice to have that behind us now and just finally be able to start thinking about getting some wine out to you guys. So, kind of thinking back to when we started this, I think it's really important for us to kind of define what our reasoning was. I mean, ultimately, I had returned from making wine in Italy and Germany with Isabel, and we started thinking about what was maybe possible here and started talking to my father about it. And, you know, between the three of us, we came up with this idea that maybe we'd give this a shot. But ultimately, it wasn't just, let's try to make a winery. It was much bigger than that. It was kind of questioning what had been done here and what could be done here. And sort of laying out our vision and our mission really kind of helped bring that all into perspective for us. And really, when we started this, the goal was to try and do a couple of things. One of which was kind of take the Finger Lakes to the world. Maybe, hopefully, improve, change, or at least set an impression of what the Finger Lakes could do worldwide, but also kind of drive it locally and what we do here as winemakers, and really be a part of pushing this forward as we kind of rethink what's possible here in the Finger Lakes, and trying to essentially learn from the past, but not let the failures of the past keep us from envisioning successes in the future. So ultimately, really, that's really what we started this whole little project with, was the idea of trying to push the Finger Lakes forward, trying to spread the message of what's possible here worldwide, trying to push the idea of what's possible here locally, trying to encourage other small wineries and other wine-focused and quality-focused producers that this region is possible and viable. And it's been really exciting 10 years in to see a lot of that stuff happening. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for allowing us to work on that vision, to work on that and push forward and to really kind of garner the attention that we need for making those things possible. So With that, we've got some fun wines coming your way. And as always, our wines are probably could be noted for they're always a little bit older than I think a lot of our contemporaries. And that's pretty much exactly what we want. A big part of my ideal and dream for the Finger Lakes is to sort of someday see the aging potential recognized here. And ultimately, when we make wine, our goals are really simple. We want to make wine that's transparent, and we want to make wine that has the ability for development. I think to the wines that I truly enjoy, my favorite wines in the world to drink, whether it's old Olga Raffos or old Napa Cabs or old Bordeaux, these are wines that I think not only have aged but improved. And they're wines that maybe in their youth were easy to overlook, but with sort of the complexities built in through time, these wines become ultimately some of the greatest drinking experiences I've ever had in my life. And I hope that someday we'll find out that same thing could be said about the Finger Lakes. So in that mission, we really try to make wine that has the potential to age and develop. And along those lines, it's been always part of our goal to bring these wines, hold these wines a little bit longer, see them a little bit more developed before we release. And with the idea that essentially when we release a wine, it's entered what we kind of consider its first real drinking window. And hopefully it's kind of at the beginning of that, and that over time we'll see that wine continue to develop and continue to age. So the idea is that we bring it to you a little bit more mature, but also hopefully all of these wines have a whole lot more development inside of them. And when I say more development, I mean, for me, I'm hoping that most of these wines are going to be wines that are going to continue to evolve positively for at least 10 years, and it hopes 20, 30, 40 in some cases. So with that, we've got some new releases for you, some things that we're just bringing out and that we finally think are kind of entering that first drinking window. So we'll start out kind of breaking up our wines into two big categories. Something that we've started to do more and more as we think about what we do and how we do it and how we want to move forward. Kind of understanding, drawing a line between what we call our sort of core wines and our workshop wines is really a way for us to differentiate the way that we talk about our wine. Our core wine for us is kind of the things that are our staples. They are the things that both I think we're known for, that we work with consistently, and that ultimately I think that we've really gained the most experience with over time. So at this point, things for core wines for me would be Riesling and Chardonnay for our whites, or Pinot or Syrah or Cab Franc for our reds, as well as the red table wine that you've become familiar with. And then I think the workshop wines are for us something that's kind of experimental. They're wines that maybe we want to try a different parcel. Maybe we want to try a new grape. Maybe we want to try a new soil. Maybe we just want to try some new winemaking technique. And ultimately, they really kind of link back to that mission, which is we want to make great wine, but we also want to push what's possible here. And we want to challenge what people think could be done in the Finger Lakes. I think if you flash back even 20 years ago, to think that great Riesling could be made here would have been a stretch. If you flash back 10 years ago, the thought that red wine could be made here was really kind of a stretch. And I think right now we're just starting to push that bubble. So, looking back 5 years ago, 8 years ago, I would maybe have probably even considered Syrah for me more of a workshop wine than a core wine. At this point, really truly feeling as though that grape has stunning potential here in the Finger Lakes. For me, that's kind of the point of this workshop program, is to identify things that I think eventually may become core wines, but ultimately things that I think may eventually define the Finger Lakes or be a part of the discussion or a part of the identity of who we are and what we do here. With these workshop wines, they're made in tiny quantities. We're talking about 1 or 2 barrels at a time. So that might equate to 25 or 50 cases, 70 cases. In some cases it's been as small as 14 cases of something, 12 cases of something. And while the quantity may be small, I think the idea is that the quality is certainly not. And also, hopefully, the impact isn't. Because the idea, again, is just to see what's possible. Whether it's testing out a new grape like Grenache or Syrah or Gamay, or whether it's pushing a new area or a new place like Niagara Escarpment, whether it's trying a new winemaking technique. Those are all kind of unique expressions of that. And ultimately, by the time it gets to the bottle, the goal is, or if it makes it to bottle, that the wine that is in there is something that we think truly has something to say about the future of the Finger Lakes. So to start it out, we've got a couple of core wines coming your way this year. First and foremost, we'll start out with Riesling. 2014 Riesling is our newest release. You might remember we've jumped around a little bit from 10 to 9 to 12 to 11. Then we briefly stopped at 13 really quickly before it sold out, and now we're at 14. And 14 is it's a wine that I think really kind of encapsulates the last 10 years of work that we've done with this. It's a wine that's really taught us how we can push Riesling and what we can do to really kind of dial in some of these textures and some of these characters that we really like. And as we've sort of experimented with extended aging and with this sort of extended élevage program, I mean, this wine spent a lot of time on lees and then even more time in bottle. It's really allowed us to dial in this kind of waxy, oily, viscous texture that I think we always see in our Riesling, but this almost like crystalline mineral characteristic to it. I think this wine is really just starting to open up, but again, I think the longevity, the lifespan of this wine is incredibly long. So I think this wine is really, really in an absolutely beautiful position right now. It's crisp, it's bright, it's fresh, it's so zippy on the palate. I think it's just drinking wonderful for kind of all winter long. Additionally, it's also, sadly, going to probably be the last release of Riesling for us for a while. In kind of revisiting that mission, which is something that we started to really do a little bit more, and we realized that Riesling wasn't necessarily a grape that was going to accomplish what we were shooting for. It's a grape I love. It's my favorite grape in the world. It's a grape I came here to start making. It's a grape I love making. And ultimately, I really think that the expression of the Rieslings that we've produced have been really, really exciting. But in our goal and with our bandwidth to try and really change the way that the world perceives the Finger Lakes, I'm not sure that Riesling is the most impactful way for us to have done that, to be doing that. So in 2014, we made a conscious decision that we were going to stop making Riesling. We were going to focus on wines that I think weren't getting the attention that they necessarily needed or deserve from here. And so starting in 2014, we decided we would no longer make white wine and that we'd really put all of our focus moving forward on our red wine program. And so ultimately, while I'm really excited about this wine, I'm a little sad to say it's also going to be the last vintage that we make Riesling for a while, at least till we change our mind again, ultimately, I guess. So that's the 2014 Riesling. We've also got a new vintage of Cabernet Franc coming your way. So the 2014 Cab Franc is a wine that I've just been super excited to release. This is a grape that I think is probably one of the most obvious red grapes here in the Finger Lakes. It is a wine that blends perfectly with where we are and what we do here. So Cabernet Franc is always a wine that I look forward to working with every single year, and the 2014 has just been stunningly delicious. I've been waiting to release this wine for a while, and I'm so excited to finally bring this out for you. It was an absolutely beautiful growing year that I don't think necessarily got the credit that it deserved. It wasn't easy, but it produced absolutely spectacularly concentrated wines. We ended up with a really cold snap between the 13, 14 years, so that winter was really cold, giving us a little bit lower yield across the board, and therefore we get this little bit more density, a little bit more concentration on the palate, and I absolutely am blown away by this wine. It sort of captures everything that I want, from density to that herbal aromatic to some sort of bell pepper vegetal pyrosinic characteristic, all sort of backed up by this beautiful black fruit character. And the palate, the texture are all absolutely gorgeous. So really excited to be sending that out your way, along with a new release of The Element, or the first release of The Element, or maybe not. So ultimately, when we started, everything that we did in the beginning was with this idea of varietal. We wanted to define varietal in the Finger Lakes, varietal identity in the Finger Lakes. So when we would work with wines, when we would taste our wines, when we would make our selections for wines, it was always about capturing what Pinot Noir in the Finger Lakes tasted like, what Cabernet Franc in the Finger Lakes tasted like. And that was really our goal, was to capture variety in place. And then we had this idea, and more and more is, again, kind of drawing from my own personal preferences and my own personal experiences, looking more and more at the wines that I like to drink, started to wonder about what would happen if we focused also on making a blend. A wine that maybe took variety out of the picture, or at least put it in the back seat, and really left us just looking at time and place. So at this vintage in our region. And ultimately, we started really diving down this path and getting really, really excited about it. And so we started in 2010 making our first example. We didn't make hardly any red wines in 11 at all, or actually only released 2 wines in 11 at all. And then jumped straight to the 2012, where we really kind of pushed this a little bit further. Thinking not only about making a blend that really represented the time and the place, but also about treating that blend to a little longer élevage, to a little bit longer development, to a little bit more time in barrel, a little bit more time in bottle before release. Kind of riffing off this Rioja Grand Reserva model, if you will, to really bring that wine truly to you when we think it's really starting to kind of hit its stride. And so 2013, The Element, essentially is just a name change from the Red Table Wine. As brilliant as I thought that really simple monkeyer was, it doesn't seem to have worked as well for everybody else. So what I thought was a wonderfully witty and clever name, very simple, it is both red and meant for the table, is going to change in 2013, where it just becomes The Element. And this is just a continuation of that same idea. The Element 2013 is going to be similar to the 2012 in its components. It's going to be focused on Cab Franc and Syrah, though there's a couple of little touches of this and that in there as well. But Cabernet Franc and Syrah have made up both the 12 and the 13 as as kind of a unique blend, and one that I don't really have any historical or regional sort of experience with. It's one that I think is kind of unique to us. I mean, it's not a Bordeaux blend. It's not a Rhone blend. It's really, to me, maybe what could eventually be considered a Finger Lakes blend. And I think it works so well together. And while I've been absolutely crushing the 2012s lately, I think they're drinking spectacularly at the moment. This 13 really, I think, almost hits it even a little bit more uniquely than the 12 did, in that we get this kind of herbal green attack up front on the nose. It's aromatically reminiscent of Cabernet Franc, but on the palate you get this really spicy, peppery, kind of meaty, gamey, Syrah-like aspect, which I think is really beautiful right now. So I hope you like that wine as much as I do, because I'm pretty jazzed about it. The last part of this release is going to be from our workshop wine program, 2016 Blaufränkisch. It's a wine that we've been working on. We've made it 3 times now. We made it in 13, 15, and 16. And of those, The 15 was kind of an outlier for us. It was what you received last from us, and I think it's a beautiful wine. But both the 13 and the 16 are very, very similar, though ultimately they all come from the same vineyard. They did come from different parcels within that vineyard and different vine ages within that vineyard. But they come from the same vineyard and they've been made in the same way. But the 13 and the 16 are very, very reminiscent of each other. So if you remember that super floral, violet, lavender, rose-driven wine, that kind of high-toned character that we saw in the 13, it's very, very reminiscent of what we see in the 16 again right now. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. 15 was kind of a different beast. It was much darker, much more roasted. It was like darker spice, black pepper, and like meaty, gamey characteristics. It was almost this kind of like Syrah-like version of Blaufränkisch for us. So really excited to be bringing this 2016 Blaufränkisch your way. And because we wanted to kind of give you a little bit of historical reference, I've also got some 2013 Lemberger coming for you as well. This is a library release from us. So the Lemberger is same grape. So we figured we needed a little change of scenery and made a little kind of game day change as well. So we've been talking about the 2016 Blaufränkisch, which I think is really, really delicious right now. And I mentioned, I think, earlier that it's very similar to me to the 2013. So we thought we'd also pop a bottle of the 2013 in this mailing for you as well. But you're going to notice that it's called 2013 Lemberger. Same grape. But ultimately it came from sort of two different histories. So Blaufränkisch is the term that we use for it in Austria, and as it left Austria, it became known as Lemberger as it moved to Lemberg, Germany, and then from there it came to the New World in most cases. So sort of throughout the New World where we see this grape, it's historically been called Lemberger. More recently, though, we're seeing more and more people starting to call it Blaufränkisch. As it's a little bit more historically accurate, though I think even more so than that, it's probably more accurate to even say that I think it came from Hungary, where it'd be called Keckfränkisch before then. But the Blaufränkisch and Lemberger on our labels are the exact same wine, same vineyard, same similar winemaking styles, but essentially different plots within that vineyard, and also different vine ages within that vineyard. So this 2016 for me really reminds me very much of that 13, where it's like high-toned floral, violet, lavender, and then this kind of pretty red fruit characteristic, really soft, supple on the palate, light and delicate. So I hope that you enjoy getting a chance to taste these two side by side, the 16 and the 13, and kind of see how they compare to each other. And in addition, sort of the last thing that we're going to fill up those two boxes with for you is going to be some magnums. Now, I always like to bottle quite a few magnums, as well as even larger bottles, some Jeroboams. So when we talk about magnums, that's a 150 centiliter or 1500 milliliter bottle. So it's basically 2 times the size, but more so than just the size is how the wines develop in them. Typically, wine in magnum will develop a little bit slower, and also as it sort of develops, for me, they tend to gain a little bit more complexity. They tend to layer a little bit more sort of intricately. So I think that when given the option between drinking an older wine in Magnum or in 750, I would always take the option of Magnums. So if you're thinking about laying something down, this is a great choice for that. But it's also just more fun. So if you got a good group over for the holidays, for fun, for parties, Magnums show you care. So go ahead and pop one of those open if you like. And that brings a conclusion to this round. Hopefully you liked everything that we've talked about, and if you've got any feedback, if you've got any thoughts or ideas for us, please let us know. As always, thank you so much, and we really appreciate the support.